So let's start making drawings in AutoCAD, and we'll start it with line command. So you can start any command in AutoCAD by two different ways. So you can either select the command from the panels on these tabs, or you can use its command equivalent. So in this case, if you want to start the line command, you simply have to click on this line icon or the line tool. Alternatively, you can also use its command equivalent line or its command shortcut L, and you can simply press enter to start the command. So let's type L and press enter, and here also we have this line command. Now after starting a command, you'll notice that this command line will show in bold letters the name of the command or the command equivalent of that command, and also the instructions that you can follow to make the geometry. So in the first case, let's make a simple rectangle with a length of 10 units and a width of 5 units using the line command. So now here it's prompting you to specify the first point. So let's click anywhere in the drawing area to specify the first point. And here we have it. Now make sure that this polar tracking, object snap and object snap tracking is turned on for making this rectangle, and we'll learn about these status bar options later on in this course. Let's now move our cursor towards right side and enter a length of 10 unit and press enter. So now you'll notice that depending upon the current scale of your drawing, the line may be very small just like this, or it may be of very large size. So you need to zoom in and zoom out in order to fit that line in our drawing area. So now here we have it, the line of length 10 units. Now we need to make another line in the upward direction. So move your cursor in the upward direction and you'll see this green tracking vector. That simply means your line is completely vertical now, and enter the next distance, which is 5, and press enter. Now move it towards left and once again enter a distance of 10 units, press enter, and now you can move downwards and enter a distance of 5 units, and that will close the rectangle. Or you can simply type C on the command line for close and press enter, and this will close the complete rectangle like this. So using line command, we have made this rectangle of length 10 unit and 5 unit, and it's fairly simple to do this. But there is another method of doing this as well. So let's now erase this complete rectangle, and now we'll bring this UCS in the drawing area. And in order to bring it directly, you can click on this zoom extents option, and now you can bring it here. So now we will again make the rectangle, the same rectangle of length 10 unit and width 5 unit, but this time instead of using the direct distances, we will use the coordinates. So let's go to the line command, and now let's start the rectangle from the origin. So we need to specify the first point as 0, 0 and press enter. And now you'll notice that the cursor snaps automatically to the origin. Now we need to specify the second point, which will be somewhere at this place. And here we know that the length of the line should be 10. So the X value should be 10 and the Y value is 0, because its distance in Y direction is completely 0. So I'll type 10, 0, press enter, and here we have it, the line of length 10 units in this direction. Okay, now we need to make this line in upward direction, and its length should be 5 units. So its coordinates will be 10, 5, because the value in x-axis is already 10, and we are taking it to a height of 5 units also, so that will also add up. So the total value will be 10, 5 for the coordinates. Press enter. Okay, now we need to go to this point, and the coordinate for this point will be x0 and y5, because we don't have any value in the x, we only have a height here. So let's type 0, 5, and here we have it. Now we need to return back to the origin, and for that we simply need to type 0, 0 and press enter, and here we have it, the rectangle. Now press enter again to exit this command. So these are the two different ways of making the rectangle. Now this method will not work, the method of using coordinates will not work if you use any other point instead of origin as the starting point. So let's do this again, and in this case I'll select the line command once again, and now I'll click somewhere inside this rectangle. And now we need to make a rectangle of length 10 units, so I'll use the same coordinate value, which is 10, 0, and now press enter, and you'll notice that instead of making a horizontal line of length 10, the line is snapping to this endpoint, which is the actual 10, 5 value. So if you're not making any geometry from the origin, and if you're making it from anywhere randomly in the drawing area, then you need to use the relative coordinate system. And it's quite simple. You only need to add an @ sign before the coordinates. So if you want to make another rectangle, let's say that the rectangle should be somewhere over here. So for that, start the line command, click anywhere, and now just type @10, 0. Now AutoCAD will assume this point, the starting point, as the origin, and now it will make a line of length 10 units. Now if you want to take this cursor upwards, and if you want to make a line in upward direction, you can again type @0, 5, because in this case the origin will shift to this point. So whenever you will add an @ sign, the origin will shift to the previous point where you have clicked. So if this is origin and we want to make a line of length 5 units in the upward direction, so the coordinate of that point will be 0, 5. So let's press enter, and here we have it. Now we need to make another line here, and in this case we are moving in the left direction. So again I'll type and this time I need to enter -10, because we are making it in the left direction, and the left direction is always negative. And we don't need to add any value in the y axis, so I'll type y as 0, and now press enter. Here we have it. Now we need to move to this point, and in this case we need to move downwards in y axis, and x axis value is 0. So let's type @0, -5, and press enter to return back to the origin, and press enter again. So this system might be a little bit confusing to you, so don't worry about this. We'll practice this later on in this course, and you can always come back to this lesson after practicing some of the drawings, and then you will be able to use this relative coordinate system quite easily. So this was an introduction to the line command, and also an introduction to making geometries using the absolute and relative coordinate system. In the next lesson, I will tell you about making the lines or making the geometries using the polar coordinate system. In the previous lesson, we have made a simple rectangle using the line tool, and we have used the simple Cartesian coordinate system, and we have also used the direct distance entry method and the relative coordinate system. So we have used multiple different methods to make the same rectangle. And now in this lesson, I will tell you about making lines which are inclined to certain angles, and for that we need polar coordinates. So let's say that we want to make a simple line which is inclined to an angle of 30 degrees with a length of 5 units. So there are a couple of methods for doing that as well, but we will use the simple polar coordinate method in this lesson. So let's start the line tool again, click anywhere in the drawing area, and now as I told you that we need to make a line inclined to an angle of 30 degrees. For that, type this angle sign. Now this angle sign will be available on your keyboard right beside the M key. So type this angle sign, and now type the angle which you want this line to restrict in, and then press enter. So now move your cursor, and you'll notice that this line will be restricted to an angle of 30 degrees. Now you need to simply enter the length, and which is 5 in this case, and press enter, and press enter again to exit this command. And here we have it, the line of length 5 units, which is inclined to an angle of 30 degrees with respect to the positive side of x-axis. Now there are also some other ways of making the same line. So I'll select the line tool again, click at any point here, and now if you want to make this line directly using a single command, then type @ and as you know that we have used the @ symbol in the previous lesson also, so that will add a relative coordinate system. Now enter the length, which is 5, and now type angle sign and enter 30. So this will be the angle. So the normal syntax of this command is @ length of line, angle sign, and then angle value. And now press enter and press enter again, and we have this line directly using a single command. So in this way you can use both of these methods for making this line, and although this method, the second method, will be a little bit intimidating to you for now, but you will find it a lot easier when you'll become comfortable with some of the AutoCAD tools. So if you want, you can follow any of these methods for now. So let's erase these lines, and now let's make a few more lines. So I'll go to this line command, click at any point here, and now I'll make another line which is inclined to an angle of 45 degrees. So let's type at, and the length of line should be 5. So type at 5 and angle sign 45. Press enter, and here we have it. Now let's make another line which starts from the same point, but this time it should be inclined to an angle of minus 60 degrees. So let's type at 5, the length of line, angle sign minus 60, and since we are entering a negative value of angle, the line should be made in this lower direction. So let's press enter, and yes, we have this line in this lower direction. You can also use a positive value, or you can also use 300 degrees for making the same line. So that will be 180 degrees plus the additional angle that will make 120 degree here, and that will be this minus 60 degrees angle. So this was all about using different distance entry methods in AutoCAD and making a line with that. And from the next lesson, we'll start making some of the other simple geometries in AutoCAD. In this video, I'll tell you about the circle command of AutoCAD. So you'll find the circle tool here on the draw panel of Home tab, and when you click on this small arrow, you'll see the circle fly out with 6 different methods of making the circle. So the most basic method of making a circle is the center radius. Now in order to select the command, you can click on this center radius option, or you can also use its command equivalent circle or C. Now after starting the command, click at the point from where you want to start the circle, and in this case we want to start the circle from this midpoint of this rectangular geometry. So I'll click at this point, and this will be the center of our circle. Now look at the command line, and it prompts you to specify the radius of this circle. So let's enter the radius of this circle as 1 unit and press enter. So now here we have it, the circle with radius of 1 unit or a diameter of 2 units at the center of this line. Now let's look at the other method of making the circle. So go to the circle flyout and select the center diameter, and in this case we need to specify the center first. And obviously when you look at the command line, you'll notice that here we have the option. This option has been overridden, and we have this option now which says that we need to specify the diameter of the circle. So let's type 3 as the diameter and press enter. And now here we have it, the circle with a diameter of 3 units or a radius of 1.5 units. You can also start the diameter option from this center radius command. So click on the center radius. Now click at this point or any other point to start the circle, and now you can click on this diameter option on the command line to start the diameter, and now simply enter the diameter value. Let's say that we want to enter 4 as the diameter value and press enter. And here we have it, the circle with a diameter of 4 units or a radius of 2 units. So let's now erase all of these circles, and now look at the remaining options here. So the next option is a 2-point circle. So what if we want to make a circle that connects 2 points, for example the end point of this line? So here we can click on this point and then click on this point, and here we have the circle, and this line will act as a diameter for the circle. Now let's click on this flyout again and select the 3 point. Now in this case we need to specify 3 different points. So I'll select here the first point, now select the second point here, and now I'll select this point, and this is the midpoint of this line. So I'll click on this point, and here we have it, the circle on 3 different points. So this circle will essentially pass through these 3 points, and the radius of this circle will be decided based on the geometry here or based on the points on which we click. Now let's look at the remaining options here. So now we have one more option here, which is tangent radius. So I'll select this tangent radius, and now let's select any of the geometry for the first tangent point. So click on this circle, now click on this line. So now the circle will be tangent on this circle and on this line, and now we need to enter the radius. So you need to enter a radius which will be appropriate for this geometry. So I'll enter 2 here and press enter, and now when you look here, you'll notice that this circle is tangent on this circle, and this circle is also tangent on this line, and the radius of this circle is 2 units. Now what if we want to make a geometry in such a way that it's tangent on 3 different geometries. For that, I'll first erase these 2 geometries, and now we'll make a single circle which is tangent on this line and on these 2 circles. So for that, I'll select the last option, which is tritangent or tangent, tangent, tangent. Now click on the first circle, the line and the circle. And here we have it. This circle is tangent on both of these circles and also on this line. So these are the different ways of making a circle in AutoCAD. In this video, I will tell you about the arc tool of AutoCAD. So here we have a simple square with 100 unit length and 100 unit width. Now, when you go to the draw panel, you'll see this arc fly out, and when you expand it, you'll see 11 different options for making the arc. So we'll start with the first option, which is 3-point arc. And as the name suggests, you need to enter 3 different points in order to make this arc. So I'll click at the first point, then second point somewhere over here, and the third point here. And here we have it. So in this way, you can create the arc with 3 different points. Now let's look at the other option, which is start, center and end. So here we need to enter the start point at first, then the center point and the end point. So now let's start with the start point. So I'll click at this point, that will be the start point. Now I'll click at the center point, which will be the midpoint of this line. And now you'll notice that the arc is being formed in anti-clockwise direction, just like this. And now you only need to enter the third point. So click anywhere in the drawing area to apply the third point, and I can click here to make the arc. And here we have it. Now let's go to the other option here, and here we have this start, center and angle. Now before making this arc, I'll simply erase both of these arcs which we have made, and now select this start, center and angle. So once again, we need to first click on the start point, then the center point, and now the angle. Now this will be the included angle of the arc. Now you can enter the included angle directly by clicking anywhere in the drawing area, or you can also type the angle. So in this case, let's say that we want to make an included angle of 30 degrees. So I'll simply type 30 on the command line and press enter. And here we have it. Now what included angle is actually, so let's make a line to show it more clearly. So click on the line tool, and now go to the center of arc and make this line. Now the angle which is in between this line and this line is of 30 degree, and you can verify it with this angle tool. So let's zoom into this area, and here you can see that the included angle is 30 degrees. So now let's remove it completely, and now let's look at other options here. So in a similar way, you can create an arc with a chord length. So here also we need to enter the start point, then center point, and then the chord length. So let's select it and click at the start point. And now the center point, which you can select at this point or any other point. Let's click here, that will be the center point. And now you need to enter the chord length, and in this case the maximum chord length can be equal to the diameter, and you cannot make a chord which is longer than the diameter obviously, and depending upon the chord length the arc will be made. So let's say that we want to make an arc with a chord length of 60 units. So let's type 60 and press enter. So now in this case, the length of this line, the line joining this end point of arc and this end point of arc, should be equal to 60 units. So that is the chord, and this is the chord length here in this case, and the length of this chord is 60 units. So let's erase it, and let's look at other options. So now we have these options in which we generally need an angle. So here also we have this start point, end point, and then angle. So let's click on this start point, then the end point, not the midpoint. So here I'm clicking for my end point, and now we need to specify the angle. Now this will be the included angle of the arc. So here also you can click anywhere in the drawing area to specify the angle, or you can also type the angle value. So I'll simply type the angle value, which is 90 in this case, and press enter. So now you must be wondering what this 90 angle is. So for explaining this, I'll make a line, and I'll click on this end point, and I'll join it with the midpoint or the center point of the arc, and I'll join it with the second end point of the arc. Now the angle between this line, let's erase this extra line, So now the angle between this line and this line should be 90 degrees. And again, you can verify it with the same angle dimension, and we'll learn about these dimensioning later on. So here you can see the angle is 90 degrees. So let's erase these geometries and let's look at other options. So now the next option is start and end direction. So once again, here we have the starting point, then the end point, and now the tangential direction. So here you can simply see that as I move my cursor, the tangent line is moving, and also the radius of arc is changing. And here we can change it directly, but this line, the dotted one, is always tangent to this arc. Now if you want to change the direction, you can simply hold the control key and the direction will change just like this. And this control key will also work for all the remaining arcs which we have drawn so far. So let's release the control key, and now let's click anywhere in the drawing area to make the arc just like this. Now let's look at the other option, which is start and radius. So in this case, we need to first click at the start point, then we need to click at the end point, and now we need to specify the radius value. So that will be the radius of arc. So let's type a radius value of 60 units, and here we have it. Now this arc has a radius of 60 units. So let's now erase both of these arcs and let's look at other options. So now we have this center, start and end. So obviously we need to first specify the center point, then start and then end. So let's click at this point. So that will be the center point. Now the start point, and choose this point as the start point. And now you'll notice that the arc can be made in anti-clockwise direction. And all you need to do is specify the end point. So here I'm clicking to specify the end point. Now you can change the direction of this arc simply by changing the start point. So I'll select this option once again, and this time I'll select the same center point, but the starting point will be this one, and now the arc will be made in opposite direction. You can also change this direction by simply holding the control key as we have done in the previous case. So I'll just release it and I'll click here. So let's now erase it. Now let's look at the other options. So now the next option is center, start and angle. So here obviously we need to specify the center point and then the start point and the included angle. So here we have the center point, the starting point, and now we need to specify the included angle as we did in the previous case. But the only difference is that we are specifying the center point instead of the start and end points. So here also you can click anywhere to specify the angle, or you can simply enter the angle value just like this. So here I'm entering 90 and the arc is made with an included angle of 90 degrees. So if you make a straight line here, the included angle will be 90 degrees. So let's erase it now and let's look at this option once again. So here we have this center, start and length. So obviously you need to specify the center point and then the start point and the length of chord, and which is very similar to the arc which we have already made. So you can click anywhere to make this arc, and the length of this chord will be the length which you specified by clicking in the drawing area. Now the last option is a little bit different, the continue arc, and for this you need to make an arc, then only it will work. So we need to make an arc here. So I'll select this 3 point, now click at this point, now click somewhere around this point, and now click at the middle point somewhere around this. So here we have this arc. Now let's go to this flyout and select the continue option. Now as soon as you click on the continue option, you'll notice that another arc will be formed, and that arc will be tangential, or the geometry will be completely continuous in between these two arcs. And if you select the continue option once again, the next arc will follow the previous one, and in this case also the geometry will be completely continuous, or the arcs will have a completely tangential geometry at the point of contact, just like this. So this was all about creating arc with different options of the arc flyout. So you can use any of these options depending upon the geometry which you want to make, but the most frequent one are the 3-point arc, the start end radius and the center start end, which I mostly use, but you can obviously use other options depending upon the situation. In this video, I'll tell you about making ellipses in AutoCAD. So ellipse is a simple mathematical curve, and in AutoCAD you can make it directly with the ellipse tool. So on the draw panel, when you expand this flyout, you'll see that we have this ellipse tool, and you can make it using these two options. We also have an elliptical arc that also will look in this video. So I'll start with a simple ellipse. Now as you can see that in this ellipse we need to enter 3 different points. So for making this ellipse we need to start with the center point. That will be the first point as mentioned in this flyout here, and then we need to enter the second point, that will be the end point of one of the axes, and then the third point which will be the end point of another axis. So we'll do this on this geometry. So I'll select this center end ellipse. Now obviously we need to specify the center point as mentioned on the command line. So we need to specify the center of ellipse. So that center point will be point B in this geometry. Now we need to specify the end point of ellipse, and we can take the end point as point C or point A. So let's take this point C as the end point of one of the axes. And now you'll notice that our ellipse is changing shape along with the cursor, and you can simply specify the next endpoint of the minor or major axis. So here we can specify the next endpoint of the axis as this point, or we can also specify this point as the axis endpoint. But first we'll click at this point here, and that will be the axis endpoint, and here we have it. So now the A, B, C are the points on the major axis, where A, C is the major axis and these 2 points are of minor axis. Now if major axis and minor axis have equal length, then that will make a simple circle. So now let's erase this ellipse and let's select the second method, which is axis end. Now in this case we need to specify the 2 endpoints of the axis. So I'll select the A point as first axis endpoint, and then point C as the second axis endpoint. And now we need to again specify the endpoint of another axis. So here in this case I am again selecting this point, and here we have it. So the only difference between these 2 ellipses is, in the first case we need to specify the center and then endpoint, but in the second case we have to specify the 2 endpoints. So now let's erase this one as well. So now let's have a look at the elliptical arc. So for that I'll once again go to the flyout, and here we have this elliptical arc option. So let's select it, and now in this case also we need to first make the ellipse and then we'll convert it into an arc. So here as you can see that we need to specify the end point of the ellipse. Alternatively, you can also click on the center option here on the command line to start the ellipse from the center point. So I'll click on the center and then click on the center point, and now the end point of one of the axes, and here we have the ellipse. So now we need to specify the second end point, and now the ellipse has been made, but in this case the command is still active. And now you need to start the angle for elliptical arc. So click anywhere in the drawing area, and that will be the starting point for our elliptical arc. And as you can see that now our elliptical arc is being made from that point, and now you can click at any other point to end the elliptical arc, or you can also add the included angle directly on the command line. So I'll simply click here, and here we have it, the elliptical arc, which is simply a part of this complete ellipse. So in this way we can make ellipses and elliptical arc in AutoCAD. In this video I'll tell you about making rectangles in AutoCAD. So we've already seen the simple methods of making rectangle using the line tool, but we have a direct method of making rectangles in AutoCAD as well, and that's using the rectangle tool. So here we have this rectangle tool on the draw panel, and when you expand the flyout you'll see the rectangle tool here. Now select the rectangle tool, and now you need to specify the first point for making the rectangle, and you can specify the first point as 0, 0. That will be the origin in this case, and you can see that the rectangle starts from the first point at origin. Now look at the cursor, which is at this vertex of the rectangle, and now when you look at the command line you will see that it's prompting you to specify the other corner point, and that is this corner point on which we have our cursor right now. So all you need to do is enter the coordinates of this point. So let's say that we want to make a rectangle with length 10 and width 5. So in that case the coordinates of this point will be 10, 5, and now press enter, and here we have it, the rectangle with length 10 units and width 5 units. So now in this case we made this rectangle from the origin, that's why it was very easy for us to make a rectangle with this kind of length and width. But what if we make the same rectangle not from the origin? So I'll start the rectangle and click anywhere in the drawing area to make the rectangle, and that will be the first point. Now we again need to make another rectangle with length of 10 and width of 5 units, but in this case I'll simply enter 10, 5. And now look at the results. And instead of making a rectangle with length 10 and width 5, the next rectangle simply snapped to the same point, which was 10, 5. So in this case we need to change some parameters. So now I'll erase this rectangle and I'll start the rectangle tool. Now again I'll click anywhere in the drawing area, and now obviously if you want to make a rectangle with length of 10 and width of 5 in such a way that it does not start from the origin, then you need to add this add sign. So this add sign will tell AutoCAD that the origin point is this one, the original point on which we have clicked to start this rectangle, and now simply enter length, 5, that is width, and press enter. And here we have it, the rectangle with length 10 and width 5 units. So whenever you need to make a rectangle, you need to simply enter add sign and then length and then width. So that will make the rectangle of desired value. Now we can also add some properties to this rectangle, and one of the property is fillet or the rounded edges. So let's start this rectangle and now look at the command line. So we have these multiple options here. I'll select the fillet and now I'll enter 1 as the fillet radius. So we'll learn about fillets later on in the next module. And for this example, I'll simply make a normal rectangle with a fillet of 1 unit. So now we have specified the fillet value. Simply specify the first corner, and now when you start making the rectangle, you'll notice that the rounded corners will be formed automatically, and the radius of these corners or the vertices will be 1 unit, and that's the fillet which we have applied. So you can click anywhere in the drawing area to make the rectangle, or once again you can enter add length, width to make the rectangle of desired value. So I'll simply erase it and I will change the values once again. So I'll go to fillet again and I'll change the value back to 0, and now I'll make another rectangle like this. So if you want to make a rectangle with some width, that also you can do. So for that I'll select the rectangle tool again, and now here we have an option of width. So let's select this width and apply a width of 0.5 units. And now click at a point to start the rectangle and then click at another point to end it. And now here we have this rectangle with some thickness or some width, and we'll also learn about this polyline width later on in this course. So we again need to start the rectangle tool, select the width option and change the width value back to 0, and here we have the normal rectangle. So let's now erase it. So in this way we can make a rectangle with variety of different options in AutoCAD. In this video I will tell you about the polygon tool of AutoCAD. So a polygon is simply a closed geometry which is made up of a minimum of 3 line segments and a maximum of infinite number of line segments. So technically a circle is the largest polygon with infinite number of sides, and a triangle is a smallest polygon with 3 sides. So in AutoCAD you can make a polygon with a minimum of 3 sides, which is a triangle, and a maximum of 1024 sides. And I guess 1024 side is more than enough for making any kind of polygon in AutoCAD. So we can start making polygon from the tool here on the draw panel. So when you expand the flyout, you'll see this polygon tool here. Now after starting the polygon tool, you'll see on the command line we have an option here which says we need to enter number of sides. So you can enter any value between 3 and 1024. So let's enter 5 and press enter. So we are making a pentagon now, and now you need to specify the center of polygon. So click anywhere in the drawing area to specify the center, and now look at the command line. And command line now prompts you to choose one of the options, either inscribed in a circle or circumscribed about a circle. So if a polygon is inscribed in a circle, then that polygon will look something like this. So here we have this circle, and the polygon will be included in the circle in such a way that the vertices of polygon will touch the circumference of the circle. But if the polygon is circumscribed about a circle, then the polygon will be outside the circle, and the midpoint of the line segments of polygon will touch the circumference of the circle. So in the first case, I'll select this inscribed in a circle. And now here we have it. So in this case, you can simply see that my cursor is on one of the vertex of this polygon, and the imaginary circle is passing through all of these 5 vertices of this polygon. So now we need to enter the radius of that circle within which this polygon is inscribed. So I'll enter 10 as the radius and press enter. So here we have this polygon. Now the circle which is passing through all of these vertices is the circle with radius of 10 unit. So now let's move it here, and now let's select the polygon tool again, and once again I'll enter 5 as number of sides, and now specify the center point, and now I'll select circumscribed about circle in this case. And now you'll notice that instead of vertices, the cursor is now at the midpoint of the line segment. Or you can say that the cursor is at the midpoint of one of the sides of this polygon. So now you need to click anywhere to specify the size of this polygon, or you can also enter the radius. So in this case also, let's enter 10 as the radius, and now we are entering the radius of this circle which is inside the polygon, and the midpoint of the sides are touching the circle. So here we have the same polygon which is inscribed in a circle of radius 10, and here we have the polygon which is circumscribed about a circle of radius 10 unit. So we have one more method of making the polygon, and using that method you can make a polygon with a known value of its side length. So let's say that we know the length of the side of this polygon, and we want to make a cyclic polygon in such a way that all the sides of that polygon are of that length which we specify. So for that you can select the polygon tool, and now once again enter number of sides, and let's say that in this case we want to enter 6 as number of sides and press enter. Now specify the center of polygon to make either inscribed or circumscribed polygon, or you can simply click on this edge option, and using this edge option you can make the desired polygon. So now you need to specify the first point of the edge, and now you need to enter the second point of the edge length, and now let's type 10 and press enter. And in this case, as you can see that we were not required to add either inscribed or circumscribed option. We simply entered the length of one of the edge of this polygon, and now all of the edges are of same length, which is 10 units. So in this way you can make an inscribed, circumscribed polygon, or a polygon with a known value of its edge length. In this video, I will tell you about polylines and splines. So let's start with the polyline tool. So here on draw panel, you'll see this polyline tool, and when you select it, you'll find its behavior is very similar to that of a line tool. So let's make a geometry with this. So I'll click at a point to start the polyline, and then click at the next point, and then the next point, and then the next point, and press enter to exit this command. So now in this case you can see that we have this geometry which is very similar to the line tool. But now let's look at this line command. So select it, now click at a point, and then make a similar geometry, but this time I'm using the line tool. And now let's see the difference between these two geometries. So in the first case, when you click on any of the segment, the complete segment will be selected. But in the second case, selecting the segment will only select that segment. Also, we have this additional grip which is quite different from the grips which we have here on the polyline. And when you hover your cursor over the polyline grips, you will see this additional menu, and we'll learn about this later on in this course. So that's one of the basic difference between a polyline and a simple line. So in this case, the lines are quite separate from each other, and in case of polyline, they are combined into a single unit. Now let's erase them. Polyline has also many other properties. So let's start this polyline, and now I'll click at a point to start the polyline, and now look at the command line. Here we have some other options related to the polyline. So I'll just click at the second point somewhere over here, and now I'll select the arc option. So now once I select the arc option, you'll notice that the polyline now changes into an arc, and we can directly make an arc shape with this polyline, and now it's still in the form of an arc. So we'll return it back to the line, and for that you need to click on this line option from the command line, and now it's back to this line shape. So once again, I'll just drag this point and click here and now click here. And here we have it. So using a single command, we can make this kind of geometry which has this little segment, the line segment, and also the arc shape. And the polyline tool can be used to make it. So now let's select this polyline tool and let's look at other options related to the polyline. So now I'll click at a point and now look at the command line. So here we have this option of half width. Let's select it. And now let's apply a starting half width of 10 unit and press enter. And now here we have an option for ending half width. Let's select 10 also in this case. And now look at this shape. So now we are able to make this polyline but with a certain width. And this is the final shape of polyline. So now the half width of this complete polyline is 10 units. So the complete width of this polyline will be 20 units. So now let's erase this geometry and I'll select the polyline tool again, click at a point, and now I'll change the half width value to 0 for both the cases, for the starting and end width. And also we have an option of width here. So using the width option, you can enter the complete width of the polyline. So let's say that we want to enter a width of 20 units, so simply type 20, press enter, and the ending width also 20, and now we have the same results here. So using half width, we have applied a width of 10 units in between the center line and the periphery or the extreme end of this thickened polyline. But in this case, we were applying the complete thickness or the complete width of this polyline, which was 20 units in this case. And here we have the final geometry. So here also you need to change these values to their default in order to have normal behavior of the polyline. So now here we have the normal polyline. Now let's look at the spline tool. So using splines, you can create some very organic shapes, and when you expand the draw panel, you'll see we have two spline commands here, the spline fit and spline with control vertices. So let's select the spline fit. Now we can click at a point to start the spline, then click at the second point, third point, and so on. So this is the spline shape which can be used to make many organic shapes in AutoCAD. And now press enter to exit this command, and when you click on this spline, you'll notice that the points where we clicked, we have these grips. So at every point where we clicked, we'll have this grip on the spline. Now let's make another spline with spline control vertices. So let's select this flyout and select the second option, which is the spline CV or spline with control vertices. Now in this case, I'll again click at a point and I'll make the spline. But in this case, if you look closely, you'll find that the spline is made in a slightly different way. So now let's press enter and let's zoom into this spline, and now you'll notice that all the points where we clicked will see this grip, and the spline is not touching the points where we have clicked except for the starting and end point. So we have clicked at this point, then this, and then this point. Now if you want to change the type of this spline, if you want to make it a spline of this type, then you can change it using this grip. So click on this down pointing grip and change it to fit, and here we have it, this spline fit. In a similar way, if you want to change the type of this spline using this down pointing grip, you can change it to control vertices, just like this. If you want to change the shape of this spline even further, you can use these grips to change its shape, and using this control vertices spline, you'll have more control over the curvature or the geometry of this spline. And in this case also, you can select these grips to further modify the shape of these splines. So this was all about polyline and spline command of AutoCAD. In this video, I will tell you about the point and revision cloud tools of AutoCAD. So I'll start with the point tool, and in order to make a point in AutoCAD, you need to use its command equivalent, which is PO or point. So let's type PO on command line and press enter. Now click at a point, and here we have it, the point is made. Now in order to make another point, simply press enter or spacebar to repeat the last command and click again. And you can repeat this process a couple of times to make multiple points here in the drawing area. So now we have a couple of points here in this drawing area, but the points are very small, almost they are of the size of a single pixel and they are not clearly visible. In order to make them visible, you can change their style or their type, and you can change that using the p-type command. So let's type p-type on command line and press enter. So this will open this point style window, and from here you can change the type of point. Currently we have the single pixel type of point selected. Let's change it to this one, and now click OK. Don't change any other variable here, and simply click OK, and now here we have it, the different point styles, and now they are quite visible. So let's now move to the revision clouds. So revision clouds are the geometries that are used in the drawing to indicate the revision areas, and in AutoCAD you can make revision cloud with couple of different ways. So here we have this rectangular, the polygonal and the freehand revision cloud. So you can use any of these options. So I'll start with the rectangular revision cloud. So let's select it, and now let's say that we want to make a revision cloud somewhere over this area of the drawing. So for that I'll click at this point, and now I'll make a simple revision cloud just like this here. So now here we have this revision cloud. Although the arcs are very small in this revision cloud, that will also take care of. And now after adding the revision cloud, you can add any node. So in this case, as you have seen that the arc length is very small, we need to modify it. So let's do this with another revision cloud. So I'll click on this draw panel to expand it, select the revision cloud, and now look at the command line. So here we have an option of arc length. So let's select it, and now the minimum length of arc is set to 0.5. So let's change this value to 2 units, and now specify the maximum value as 5 and press enter. Now we'll make another revision cloud. So here we'll add it. So let's click at this point, and now you can see the clear difference. So the arcs in this revision cloud are quite visible, and the minimum size of the arc is 2 unit and the maximum size is 5 unit as we have specified. So let's now erase both of these revision clouds, and let's look at other options of revision cloud. So once again I'll go to this draw panel, and I'll select the same revision cloud option. Now here we have some other options. For example, we have the rectangular, which we have already seen. We also have a polygonal revision cloud. So let's select this polygonal. Now let's assume that we want to include this object and this object in our revision cloud. So for that we can make a polygon just like this. So click at a point here, now click at this point, then this point, and make a revision cloud to include only these two objects. And in this way we can make the revision cloud. Now press enter, and here we have the final revision cloud. We also have one more type of revision cloud, and that's a freehand revision cloud. So let's press enter to repeat the revision cloud command. You can also go to this draw panel and repeat the command, but the quick way is simply pressing enter key or the space bar, and it will repeat the last command. So now we have already seen the polygonal. Let's look at the freehand, and in this case you can make a freehand sketch and click at a point to start the freehand cloud, and now make a sketch just like this. And when you reach the starting point, the cloud will automatically finish and the completely closed loop will be formed just like this. You can also change the type of revision cloud using the same option. So let's press enter, and now here we have an style option. So let's click on style, and we have already selected the normal, and these are the normal revision clouds. Let's select calligraphy, and here we have a different kind of revision cloud, the calligraphy type of revision cloud. So let's now press enter again, and let's select the modify option. So now using this modify option, you can modify any existing revision cloud. For example, let's assume that in this case we want to include these two objects as well in our revision cloud. So for that I can select the modify, and now I'll select the polyline which we want to modify. So obviously this is the revision cloud which we want to modify, and the revision clouds are made up of polylines. So I'll click on this revision cloud, and now let's start making another one. So I'll click at this point, and then I'll click at this point. So now we have included both of these, but we also need to remove this part. So simply click on this part and the part will be removed. And now we have it perfectly in order, and we don't want any changes. So simply press enter, and here we have the final revision cloud. So in this way you can make many revision clouds, different kind of revision clouds in AutoCAD, and even you can modify them and change their type. In this video, I will tell you about the construction line and array command of AutoCAD. So construction lines are simply lines which are used for helping to make other geometries, and they are infinite lines. So to make the construction line, go to the draw panel, expand it, and now select this option here. So here we have this construction line. You can also use its command equivalent X line. Now in order to make this construction line, simply click at a point to start it, and now click at the second point. So in this case, you'll see that we have an infinite line, and you can click at any point to add this line. So I'll click at this point, and once again I'll click at this point. So now we have these two construction lines. Now press enter to escape this command, and here we have a vertical and a horizontal construction line. Now let's assume that we also want to add a ray here, and a ray is simply another construction line, but it only starts from a point and goes in a direction. And in case of construction line, it starts at a point and goes in both the directions. So let's now expand the draw panel, select the ray tool, click at this point, and now you'll notice that this ray is going only in one direction. So you can click at any point to place it, and now press enter again to escape this command. These kind of geometries are quite helpful in making walls or the exterior boundaries of certain objects, and after making the geometries you can trim the remaining portions to make the geometries. So when you select the construction line tool, you'll see there is an option of offset. So selecting this option will allow you to create another construction line at certain distance from the original one. So let's say that we want to make another construction line at a distance of 10 units. Let's type 10, press enter. Now select the first construction line and click on the direction on which you want to make another construction line. And here we have it. So now we have another construction line in the upper direction. So in a similar way, if you want to make the construction line in this direction, simply select it and now click downwards, and here we have it. So in this way, using this offset tool, you can make multiple construction lines at certain offset distance from the original one, and we'll learn about this offset tool later on in the next module also. Okay, so now let's look at the question which is related to this module. So here in this case, you need to make this drawing using only the commands which are taught in this module. I will start with the circle command. So let's go to circle and click anywhere in the drawing area and make the first circle with radius of 2 units. So let's type 2 and press enter. Now press enter again to repeat the circle tool, and I'll go to the same center point. Now I'll make another circle with radius of 5 units and press enter. Now we have these two concentric circles. Now let's start with the line tool. So I'll click on line and now click at this quadrant, and if the quadrant is not visible, then you can click on this object snap option, and right beside that there is this small arrow. So just click on it and turn on this quadrant. Although this is a tool which we'll learn later on, but a little bit of knowledge of this tool is very helpful in making these kind of drawings. So you can turn on quadrant to see that point. Now we need to incline this line at an angle of 45 degrees. So let's type angle sign, and since this line is inclining in the downward direction, we need to enter -45 and press enter. Okay, so there we have it. Now the length of this line is 20 units. So let's type 20 and press enter. Now move it in the downward direction and enter a length of 5 units and press enter. So there we have it. Now let's press enter to exit this command and repeat the same process for the second side. So I'll press enter, I'll go to the next quadrant, and in this case I'll again type angle sign, and now I'll type an angle of 225 degrees. So let's type 225 and press enter. So there we have it. The angle inclined to 45 degrees with respect to the horizontal line. Once again, we need to enter a length of 20 units. So type 20 and press enter. Now move downwards, enter a length of 5 and press enter. Now join it with this existing point and press enter again. Now press enter again to repeat the line tool and join these 2 points. There we have it. Now we only need to add these 2 small circles, the circles which were here and here. And in order to do that, I'll start with line and click at a point, move it in left direction and enter the length 6 and press enter. press enter again to exit it, and press enter again to start it. Now click at this point and make another line with length 6 and press enter twice. Now go to the circle tool, click on this endpoint and make a circle with radius of 1 unit. Press enter again, go to this point, make another circle with radius 1 and press enter. Now we can erase these two lines, these are no longer required. And there we have it, our final geometry as per requirement.